Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about the best champions to run with Suicide Masteries. Some of you guys asked me to make a list of like my top 10 picks for Suicide Masteries, but I decided to go a bit different route. And so I split my lists kind of down a bit. So initially we're going to be talking about these first 5 champions, and I picked these first 5 because they are the champions that do actually benefit from the debuffs that you have applied to yourself. Therefore they not only gains attack increase like everybody else, they're not only perfectly compatible with Suicide Masteries via their playstyle, they do actually have a benefit from having those debuffs on you. So we're going to start with Omega Red and Corvus. Both of these two champions basically benefit extremely similarly, because Corvus takes absolutely no bleed damage while he has any glaive charges active, and Omega Red takes only 10% of the bleed damage. Therefore you still get the debuff applied to you, and therefore you get the willpower heal, and that means at the beginning of every fight, so long as a bleed from double edge is active, you're going to be actually healing up. Now that combined with the fact that these two champions make great use out of the extra added attack to them, just completely lets these champions shine while they're running Suicide Masteries. If you're not running Suicide Masteries, these champions aren't that impressive, like in all honesty. But combined with Suicide Masteries, these two just explode. Anyways, so we're gonna move on to Ghost. Ghost is another champion that shines pretty much only with suicides. Ghost has a lot of good things going for her as a champion, but what helps her kind of like make to the top of everybody's tier list is the fact that she's so good with suicide, that massive damage that she can put out. And suicides help her by giving her 2 passive furies at the beginning of every fight, and where it is extremely beneficial is in your general questing when you're dealing with kind of like medium to short level fights. It lets you start off the fight extremely aggressive. You typically can get into at least 2 to 3 critical hits with those furies active, and they normally for rank 5 Ghost kind of like dish out like 10k plus damage, and therefore anything that has like 30k, 30 to 50k health is going to be killed in a matter of seconds. And yeah, the fact that Ghost can also bypass recoil via hood synergy, she doesn't tick down damage because she shrugs off all the damage over time debuffs, just makes Ghost a perfect champion to run with suicide, especially if you are able to use like her with her synergies. Anyways, the next 2 champions are a lot less popular than top 3. Top 3 are basically like on top of everybody's tier list, and I got tier champions that everybody want to play. And the next 2 champions, I think in my opinion, are somewhat forgotten and underrated, but they are nonetheless do have inherent benefit from running suicides. So in case of Angela, it's because that for her ability that every 10% of the health she loses, she gains a heal buff. And basically what Suicide Masteries do is they make her constantly lose health, so you're pretty much going to be spending the entire fight with the additional heal buff active, and that heal buff combined with the willpower heal basically is going to make sure you are healing positive throughout the entire fight. And that means that you kind of have like a mini Deadpool effect where you can spend the entire fight fighting and you're just going to be healing up, so that always helps you offset your block and chip damage. Not to mention that Angela is as well one of those champions that damage output is key for them, because she's not really versatile, but the fact that she can heal with suicides really kind of makes her a really usable questioning champ for many different situations. And Karnak has a similar ability. Karnak does have to be awakened for it to work though, but Karnak's awakened ability and signature level here doesn't matter, because signature level just basically lets him shrug off debuffs quicker, but the second part of signature ability that you can get from whenever you have Karnak, even at signature 1, states that it reduces damage from poison by 65%. That means he significantly reduces the liquid courage damage, which lets willpower kind of like overtake the damage you're taking from liquid courage, and therefore as well again you're going to be spending entire fight healing up and just having a good time overall. So next we're going to talk about another great champion that I love using, but I mainly love using her only with suicides. And if you can take a look, do I have any filters active? Yeah, 1 second. And the champion is Quake. As we all know, Quake is genius, great character design, and she can deal with so many different kind of like issues. Her problem, however, often is that it's just the fact that she is not the most damage dishing champion. However, the playstyle while you play Quake is kind of, in a sense, high risk, high reward, because you always have to be awaiting opponent's attack and you never know when you can mess up. And here is a champion that the logic I explained in my previous video about suicides applies the best. Suicide masteries increase Quake's damage by a lot, and therefore you're going to be able to finish the fights a lot faster, and with that there's a lot less chance to make a mistake. Also, kind of like a skill intensive fight, which is pretty much every fight where you use Quake style when you try to fully heavy and dex opponent's attacks, it is a difficult thing to do, like comparatively to regular fighting, and therefore the shortened fight time really does help Quake shine as a champion. If I wouldn't have Suicide Masteries, I doubt Quake would be my favorite champion in the entire game. But combined with Suicide Masteries, her increased kill speed, she just does absolutely amazing. So that was like the first mention I wanted to say. Next, we're going to go over some champions that I think can run with Suicide Masteries pretty much undisturbed for most part, because of their playstyle largely. So first we're going to start with Archangel. Where is that little guy? I need to find mutants. So yeah, first we're going to take a look at Archangel, just because Archangel's playstyle largely relies on him doing parry and then heavy attack, parry and then heavy attack, and then you can shoot like a level 2 or something to finish the fight. However, the thing is with Suicide Masteries, for most opponents, especially if you're using him kind of like in appropriate difficulty content, as in like, I mean that by you're not trying to use 3-star against 50k opponent or something like that. If you're using champion that is ranked as highly as he's intended to be ranked, you're going to be finishing that fight with Archangel before you even have a need to use your special 2 attack first of all. And yeah, all of Archangel's damage basically coming from bleed and poison and neurotoxins, and all of those get enhanced by Suicide Masteries. Therefore, Archangel just turns into an absolute killing god while you're using suicides. Now we also have another champion, Aegon, and Aegon is a champion that basically it's a ramp up champion, right? You need to build up your combo and all that stuff. However, he also has ability to shrug off all the debuffs, therefore it means you're not going to be taking any dot damage, and with increased damage this champion just does a lot more, a lot faster, and therefore Aegon is another champion that you can run perfectly fine with using Suicide Masteries. You will take some damage like in the first fight while you build up the combo, while you manage to shrug off the debuffs, but aside from that, every next fight you're going to be doing it quicker and quicker, and the fact that you can't use special attacks isn't like too big of a deal unless you want to deal with the recoil, just because Aegon has a really good level 3 first of all, and second of all, you can still shoot that special attack, it's just you're going to take that recoil, but he dishes out so much damage that it isn't really an obstacle, and typically you're only going to be forced to shoot like a 1 level 2 or something like that. So then we're going to go to Captain America Infinity War. Where is that little guy? This is another champion that basically functions similarly to Archangel. His playstyle heavily relies on him parrying and launching a heavy attack, and then for most part you're just going to be finishing the fight off with 1 or 2 level 2 attacks. The fact that he dishes out so much damage in so little hits, and then kind of like just finishes off the fight with a special attack, and yeah, for most fights, like if you're using highly ranked Captain America Infinity War, you're not going to have too much of a problem dealing with Suicide Masteries. And then we have champions like Darkhawk. Darkhawk is not only double immune, Darkhawk also can regenerate health whenever he changes modes. So it means if you're aggressive enough, and like in all honesty, in order to pull this off consistently, you do need Darkhawk at high signature level. But once you do, he can actually net quite a bit of heal by launching special attacks, by taking that recoil that's still kind of like healing over that, and the fact that he's double immune, therefore he's not gonna have any dot on him either. Then we have Domino. Domino is also a perfectly good champion to play. Where's my Domino? Yeah, I lost her. Here she is, Domino. Domino is also like one of the top tier champions that can be run perfectly fine with suicides, just because a lot of people, when you do go questing with Domino, you also play the parry heavy game just because of her synergy with Red Hulk. Also, Domino has an inherent ability, 50% chance to shrug off the bleed at the beginning of the fight and convert it into power, so that lets you be more aggressive. And typically, you're going to be finishing the fights off with like your 1 level 2 or 3 attack. And increased damage just helps to accent that incinerate damage that you do with your heavy attacks. So Domino is a perfect option. I think I need speed up at this point now. Emma Frost is another great option just because you start the fight without any debuffs on you. The increased damage helps her finish fights so much faster. Typically you're going to be wanting to resort to your level 2s. Even like in map 7, my rank 5 Domino finishes off the most opponents pretty much in like 1 level 2 attack. Therefore she doesn't really have to deal with that recoil too much. Then we have Havoc. Do not have him as a 5 or 6 star, but here you go. Havoc is another champion that benefits greatly from suicide just because of the way Havoc's playstyle is and his plasma detonations work, and also the fact that typically you want to use level 3s. Therefore, even though you're going to be taking a small amount of damage at the beginning of the fight due to the debuffs, however, the increase in damage output is going to help you finish the bigger, tougher fights a lot faster. And then aside from Havoc, we have Hyperion. Where's Hyperion? Now Hyperion with Suicide Masteries, I think I lost it, is another super explosive champ, and basically most of your fights while questing normally are going to go with launching parry, heavy attack, and getting to level 2, shooting level 2, and typically your opponents are going to be dead. Even if they are not, you just need to land a few more hits to finish. So Hyperion is another champion that's going to be losing some health. You do lose kind of like the level 1 utility because you do not want to spam level 1 attacks with Hyperion. However, increased damage output combination with those Furies just kind of like changes Hyperion completely in his damage output. And lastly, we have Magic and Magic's Limbo. So even though Liquid Courage does hurt Magic, and ideally you run Magic with only double edge and recoil on, then he actually nets like a profitable heal. I was considering to put her in the list with the top 5 champions, but yeah, her benefit, her additional heal can only be accomplished if you do not run Liquid Courage because poison hinders your healing abilities. But still, that Limbo ability really helps you offset most of the damage you take when you run double suicides and lets you actually regenerate a lot of health if you're running just the double edge. So though they are like the top popular champions, and this list I specifically included kind of like endgame popular top of the tier list champions that people use every day to day already, and I do feel that they actually benefit from running suicide. They will lose some health in the process, but increased damage output combined with their utilities and their playstyles definitely make them a lot more dangerous champions and let them dish a lot more damage out. Now we also obviously have several champions like Beast that can run suicides very well, Guillotine, your Wolverines, X-23s, Deadpools. Majority of double immune champions deal with suicides extremely well. Dormammu actually benefits from suicides immensely as well, just because of his playstyle, because of suicide masteries he doesn't really hit all that weak anymore, and also his heavy detonation deals a lot more damage. Therefore Dormammu is kind of like transformed greatly, and also the fact that you already can access power control with your basic attacks, and that means you do not have to rely on like special spam. Definitely helps Dormammu kind of like still retain his utility but increase his damage output by a lot. And then we have Nebula. Nebula is also one of those champions that's double immune, and especially if you play Nebula for her shocks and like to build up your damage with Nebula, her shock damage increases by so much that it does actually let you finish the fights faster, in a sense that you're not gonna need to build up as many shocks before you do your kind of like parry and level 2 and double the shocks and kill opponent in like one go, because you're gonna need less of these shock charges, so you're gonna be killing everything faster basically. And yeah, that shock damage helps Nebula immensely. Also, there is another interesting thing that has come for Suicide Masteries recently, and that is Mr. Nick Fury himself with his synergy with Deadpool champion. So let me find Mr. Nick Fury. And he has a synergy basically with any of the Deadpools in the game that we have that lets you shrug off a debuff at the beginning of the fight and heal for 10% of their max health. So if you have decently ranked Nick Fury and a space on your team, Then he turns pretty much every champion for generic questing purposes suicide friendly, because you will shrug off the bleed. I don't know why they picked the bleed in Kabam, because they did that whole nerf thing, and that's like another story. But still, anyways, the way it currently works is that if you have double suicides on you, at the beginning of every fight, you're going to immediately have your bleed shrugged off, and you're going to get a heal. So because you're going to be healing at the beginning of every fight, also means you can be a lot more easy with spamming your special attacks. And typically with suicides, if you're running content appropriate champions, you're only going to have to launch 1 or 2 special attacks, and with that in mind, you're going to heal that recall damage back up at the beginning of the next fight. And Nick Fury in general just helps suicide users so much. I'm so grateful for this champion. And that synergy, I only wish that synergy would be some better champions than Deadpool's, but hey, you can't have everything. But yeah, Deadpool and Nick Fury together pretty much transforms vast majority of the champions into suicide friendly champions. Now we have a list, also a small quick list and a few mentions of champions that you do not wish to run with suicides as your main questing champions. Now, as I explained in my previous video, you can use any champion with suicides for like a specific fight or two, but there are champions like Night Thrasher, Void, Stark Spider-Man, Symbiote Supreme. Like, these champions heavily rely on spamming their special attacks, and you don't want to do that. It's kind of like every single fight you're going to be taking damage. You can still use them for their utility in order to deal with some problem fights, but when you go to the quest and start the quest, you're not going to be able to kind of realistically finish entire quest running by just 1 or 2 of these champions. And okay, Stark Spider-Man doesn't necessarily rely on spamming his special attacks, but he's just like really fragile already as it is, and yeah, that damage isn't going to do him any favors. And then we also have like Vision, Voodoo, Hawkeye, Spider-Gwen, Morningstar. All of these champions have like inherent difficulties running suicides. It's like Vision, Voodoo, and Hawkeye, they all rely basically on spamming their level 1 attacks in order to access the best parts of these champions, and that is what like makes those champions great. And that is something you don't want to do with suicides. Same as Spider-Gwen, you need to spam that special one several times during the fight in order to access like her full potential. And Morningstar, it's nearly impossible to build up souls if you have Liquid Courage debuff on you. Morningstar is great with only double edge, but Liquid Courage completely ruins her. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you learned something new. I hope there's something worth considering in regards of suicide masteries. And that's gonna be it for today, and I'm gonna see you guys soon.